This episode of the D-Lew podcast is brought to you by Happy Wrap. You ever wanted to design your very own gift wrapping paper? Now is your chance to do so. Whether it's for the holiday season, weddings, anniversaries, birthdays, no matter what the occasion calls for, you can use Happy Wrap to wrap your gifts. As a matter of fact, you can even design notebooks, greeting cards, gift tags, and so much more. You can sign up today at happy.thedlewpodcast.com and use the promo code DLEW to get your 10% discount at checkout. Again, that's happy.thedlewpodcast.com and use promo code DLEW to get your 10% discount at checkout. By Simpler Hair Color. Hey guys, are you tired of using that drugstore hair dye brand that isn't getting the job done? If you want to use a great product to cover those grays, have no fear, Simpler Hair Color is here. No mixing, no dripping, no mess. It's super easy to use, whether you're a beginner or a pro. Go to simpler.thedlewpodcast.com and use promo code DLEW10 for your 10% discount at checkout. Again, that's simpler.thedlewpodcast.com and use my promo code DLEW10 for your 10% discount at checkout. And by WWE Shop with Fanatics. Get your favorite WWE Superstars merchandise and wear them proud with superstars like the OTC Roman Reigns, Rhea Ripley, the Second City Saint CM Punk, John Cena, Main Event Jey Uso, the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes, and so many more. Oh, by the way, they got some really cool championship belts in there as well. So go to wrestling.thedlewpodcast.com. Again, that's wrestling.thedlewpodcast.com so you can go to WWE Shop with Fanatics. This podcast is a Believe Network and Siete production. Welcome to another edition of the D-Lew podcast brought to you by Believe Network. I'm your host, Derrick T. Lewis, and I hope the week is treating you all absolutely wonderful. You know, for me, this past weekend, as I alluded to last episode, that AEW, All Elite Wrestling, chose me to cover AEW Dynasty as a part of the media representing the D-Lew podcast on Believe Network. So first and foremost, I want to say thank you to Tony Khan and All Elite Wrestling for their hospitality and creating an opportunity for me to represent my brand. And I hope that this is not the last time that we cross paths, and I'm hoping that I can cover some more AEW events along the way. But man, I got to tell you, it was 12 matches that was on the card because last week, and I want to apologize to all the listeners. I thought at the time of recording, I recorded on Wednesday a little early in the day. I thought it was only going to be 7 matches as listed, but of course, you just never know. It ended up being 12 matches on the card. So I'm just gonna just go through them, just give my opinions as I actually saw it live, in person at the Liacouras Center in Philadelphia. And the card started off, not the card, but the pre-show, as they call it, 0 Hour. It was a trios match. It was Nick Wayne and Crew, which consists of Action Andretti and Leo Rush, and they were with Kip Sabian and Mother Wayne, and they took on AR Fox and Top Flight, of course, Dante and Darius Martin with Layla Gray. Let me just say, all 6 of these guys are young and extremely talented, and there's a bright future for all of them. And this is the right spot on the card for them to get the crowd going and everything. This is the future of the company, in my opinion. Especially AR Fox. I mean, that guy was all over the ring. You know what I mean? I really enjoy his work, and I look forward to seeing how they all grow. Now, I know Nick Wayne was approached by Crew last week about the possibility of, maybe joining up and that type of thing. And Nick Wayne seemed a little bit hesitant, but even after this match, and of course, Nick Wayne and Crew, they actually defeated AR Fox and Top Flight, but Nick Wayne really wanted nothing to do with Crew even after the match. So let's see where this all leads to, down the road. Of course, the second match on the 0 Hour was the open challenge match with Platinum Max Caster best wrestler alive. He was saying, "Hey, who wants to come out?" And of course, who comes out? His former tag team partner, Anthony Bowens, and he's actually using his 5-2 player thing that he was doing on the independents prior to getting signed to AEW. And of course, he comes out with Billy Gunn. And man, you want to talk about a pop. The crowd really, really popped for him. And new music, new attire, new look. He really is set on, and I'll get to the media scrum a little later in the show, talking about my question for Anthony Bowens. And he seemed really, really focused. And this side of his career now as a singles competitor, and I look forward to seeing what's going to happen. But of course, he does pin Max Caster, and my God, 40 seconds. It was a very, very short match, but the crowd really ate it up, and I mean, it was really, really good to see Anthony Bowens. But of course, here we are on the main card. Here's the thing: when you're starting off a pay-per-view or TV with Will Ospreay, man, it's just like that. It just sets the mood, to be a really, really good show. He reminds me of RVD back in the heyday in ECW when he got the Mr. PPV or the whole effing show moniker that people that he was named, because obviously RVD was Mr. Monday Night, Mr. PPV, the whole effing show. But Will Ospreay is just taking it to a whole nother level. You know what I mean? And it was the Owen Hart Cup tournament quarterfinal match against Kevin Knight, and they threw everything, including the kitchen sink in his match. It's a match I really, really enjoyed. A match I didn't want to end, and that's the unique part about it. People say a lot of times that moves don't matter. How if you're doing a bunch of moves, you're gonna, the fans are gonna kind of get tired of it. But in this instance, man, like, these guys are just so freaking good at what they do. Obviously, bringing both that New Japan style, to the forefront. And here's the thing: AEW. This is where AEW, I give them credit because this is their fan base and they're catering to their fan base. So really, really good match. Of course, Will Ospreay does win the match by pinfall, 13 minutes 50 seconds. He advances on in the Owen Hart Cup tournament. And of course, the winner of the tournament will earn an AEW championship match. I believe it all in Texas. I think that's where I believe the winner will get. But we'll see what happens from there. Up next, the AEW World Tag Team Championships. The Hurt Syndicate, Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin, of course, with MVP taking on the Learning Tree, Big Bill and Brian Keith. Now, me watching wrestling for a long time, I can kind of see the splinters happening with this with the Learning Tree. And as you all, if you guys watched AEW on Wednesday night, I'm sure you all saw what happened. I don't want to spoil it if you haven't seen it, but nonetheless, it was the match went 11 minutes. I mean, they got the stuff in, but of course, MJF, man, he gets involved in the match. He's ducking in the crowd, and he clocks Big Bill, of course, with the Dynamite Diamond Ring. And because, of course, MJF wants to be a member of the Hurt Syndicate, and of course, Bobby Lashley wants no parts of him. Shelton doesn't want any parts of him, but MVP is kind of saying, "Hey, let's give it a chance, whatever." But MJF is trying to win them over. It's just crazy, but nonetheless. The Hurt Syndicate does retain the AEW World Tag Team Championships. And we move on now to the women's Owen Hart Cup tournament match with Mercedes Moné and Julia Hart. First and foremost, Julia's entrance, my goodness, incredible. It's very dark, it's very eerie, but you can't take your eyes off of her. Even when she gets in the ring and she's standing on the middle rope and she's just standing there with her arms out and you see this big hat and this red lighting, and I like it. I like the character. I like what they're doing with her. And I know she was out with an injury, but I'm glad she's back in the fold. And hopefully, man, hey, listen, she was a former TBS champion once upon a time, and I would like to see her possibly get that title back, but we shall see. But of course, she's in there with the CEO, Mercedes Moné. They go 13 solid minutes, and I mean, again, great wrestling match. there was nothing bad about the match. Obviously the fans were, talking about a botch or whatever, but my coach Danny Cage at Monster Factory a lot of times says in a fight, if you're fighting someone at a bar or whatever it is the fight going to be perfect? No, it's not. You know what I mean? So if it's a botch in the ring or whatever, like I tend to not even, buy into that because mistakes are going to happen in there. Perfection is not always going to be the case, but the mark of a good worker, the mark of a ring general is just moving on to the next thing. And that's exactly what Mercedes did. But Mercedes did win, with the by pinfall actually. She didn't win by submission because she had her in her submission and Julia Hart kept reversing it and getting out of it. I mean, it was again a great match. But again, Mercedes does move on and I feel that I feel she's gonna win the tournament. I mean, at this point, she's approaching 1 year as TBS champion at some point. So it's only a matter of time until her and a certain someone who I'll talk about later in the show are going to lock horns for the AEW Women's Championship. I believe that'll happen at All in Texas. We have a trios match for the AEW Trios Championship with the Death Riders, Claudio Castagnoli, Pac, and Wheeler Yuta taking on Rated FTR. That's Cope, Cash Wheeler, and Dax Harwood. And again, I can't argue about, the match. There was a double submission in there. I believe it was Dax had the sharpshooter on, I believe, Yuta. Claudio had the sharpshooter on Cash, and they were slapping each other in the face, which I thought was a really funny spot. And there was a mishap that happened in the ring. And of course, the Death Riders still retain the tag belts. Dax is upset, and they both help him up. And he smacks, Edge and he starts beating the crap out of, I'm sorry, Cope. And, Cash is like, yo, what are you doing? What are you doing? And next thing you know, they do the Shatter Machine on Cope and they do the concerto on Cope and they mock because they have the paramedics come out there with the stretcher, and I believe it was Cash that was laying on the stretcher with a neck brace on, mocking what just happened. And of course, the paramedics, do eventually get the Cope and they put him on the stretcher and they wheel him out of there. I would imagine, and I said this last episode, I said I believe this was going to happen, which it did, and I think they're going to give it some time and I believe we're going to see Cope and a former tag team partner he once had named Christian Cage. I'm just saying, we shall see how this all plays out. But again, I like the move. I think, having FTR turn heel, because I think they became a little stale as baby faces. I think it was time for them to kind of new coat of paint on, so to speak, and do that heel run again. Up next, we have the AEW Women's World Championship. The champion, Timeless Tony Storm, with Luther taking on Megan Bayne with Penelope Ford. First and foremost, when Tony made her way to the ring, they showed a film, and they were saying they were not saying, but she was in there as a boxer. She was running, training, because we're in the city of Philadelphia, and who's the most famous boxer from Philadelphia? Well, fictional fighter, I might add. I don't want to disrespect Smoking Joe, but it was Rocky Balboa. So it kind of had that Rocky theme going on, and of course she comes out, with a boxing robe and her taped fist and everything, and of course Luther is her corner man, which is pretty cool. And I said last week that Megan Bayne is a star. She's truly a star, and I like her presentation. I really do. She's again 6 feet tall, looked like a Greek goddess, and again, she looks the part. I just didn't think having her in a world title match this soon was necessary. I just didn't think it was time, but nonetheless, here we are. They put the time in. I mean, they went 15 minutes, 25 seconds, and for 1 second, it looked like that Megan was going to walk out with the title. But nonetheless, Tony Storm does retain the championship with an inside cradle, which is pretty cool. It didn't have to be your signature finisher. I love finishes like that, where you're throwing a left instead of a right. That's one of the reasons why I think Bret the Hitman Hart's the GOAT is because he on pay-per-view a lot of times wouldn't win with the sharpshooter. He would barely win with the sharpshooter on pay-per-view. Give the fans something to hang on a little bit more. It's just saying, "Oh, you never know how the match is going to finish when said wrestler's in the ring." So that's that. So another Owen Hart Cup tournament quarterfinal match rather was Kyle Fletcher with Don Callis taking on Mark Briscoe. And again, I'm a huge fan of Kyle Fletcher. He's again one of the future stars of AEW. That was a good get by Tony Khan. Everything you would expect in a when you're facing Mark Briscoe. I like Mark Briscoe too. Such a unorthodox wrestler. If it was one word I can come up with, I love when he does a little karate thing in the middle of the match. Just funny stuff. And again, they were throwing haymakers. You know what I mean? Like there was nothing I could say that was horrible about the match or bad about the match, whatever. But nonetheless, Kyle Fletcher does walk out the winner and goes to the semifinals, and we shall see how the seeding is going to play out in regards to who he's going to face next. But up next is the title versus mask with Bandito um, challenging Chris Jericho for the Ring of Honor World Championship. And I had a feeling of the finish, but at first, let me just say this. I don't know what is going on, but before I think right when I guess the video montage happened, fans were getting up to use the bathroom. I kid you not, ladies and gentlemen. I was very, very surprised. I'm like, damn, this is where we are now with Chris Jericho matches. I remember a time where you were looking forward to seeing the Jericho match, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know what's going on, but nonetheless, they start the match, and I mean, again, I mean, Bandito. First of all, let me just Bandito's a strong dude. Bandito had Jericho, in a suplex position for 60 seconds. Now, granted, obviously Jericho had to do his part, in the match and making it look good. But nonetheless, you got to be strong to hold up another man 230 pounds, regardless of the fact in a position like that, in a suplex position, to do that, to do that spot. But the referee was knocked out. Jericho goes in the corner where the stairs are and got a bat. Hit Bandito in the head with it. Referee counts three. Jericho retains the Ring of Honor Championship. And of course, what happens originally that Bandito was supposed to lose the mask. However, a few rows in front of me was Bandito's family. Referee Aubrey comes down and they're explaining to the referee that, hey, Jericho used the bat. They hop the railing. They go over to where the bat was. They showed the bat. Referee restarts the match, and of course, Bandito does win the Ring of Honor World Championship, as I predicted would happen. And of course, his family gets in the ring, and they all celebrate. And it was a really really good feel good moment, for that particular match. Up next is the TNT Championship match with Adam Cole challenging Daniel Garcia. And and again, this is no disrespect to either guy, either wrestler at all. I just didn't feel a lot of time was set to build a story with these two for it to be on pay-per-view, in my opinion. I think in this instance with the TNT title, I felt as though that should have been, since it is on TNT, that should have been on Collision. And this is again no disrespect to either guy, seriously, because I really, really respect both of their in-ring capabilities and what they're able to do in there. But I just think from a storytelling perspective, I felt as though that should have been a main event on Collision, which is not a bad spot, ladies and gentlemen, I might add. Heck, somebody tells me I'm going to be on a main event of a television show seen by 600, 700,000 people, absolutely I do it. I take it. But nonetheless, Adam Cole did hurt his knee in there a little bit. And Daniel Garcia was able to work the knee, work the knee, work the knee. But of course, Adam Cole does win the TNT Championship. And we'll see what goes on from there. What's going to happen with the Undisputed Kingdom? I know they cut a nice promo on Dynamite this past Wednesday, so I'm looking forward to seeing how it all plays out with those three, and of course him being the TNT champion. But what happens with Daniel Garcia? I'm interested to see how it goes on with him as well. Now this match, my God, this match was another. It was almost like the opening match on the main card was. I didn't want the match to end. The match went 31 minutes long, and it was a three-way match for the AEW International Championship. The champion was Kenny Omega taking on Ricochet and Speedball Mike Bailey. And mm, ladies and gentlemen, I love professional wrestling, and when you get the high flyers and the guys that just won't stop and just keeps going and going and going. And I'm just like, just when you think you saw it all in the match, they bring out something else and something else and something else and something else. And I got to tell you, this to me, I feel this is the best run of Ricochet's career. No disrespect to his WWE run, but I just think from the depths of the character that he's getting into now, it's great as a heel. You know what I mean? Like he comes off a little condescending, a little cocky, and I don't want to say corny because that's not it, but I think it kind of pisses fans off a little bit, which is great if you're a heel. If you're pissing off the fans, that means you're doing your job. And I like the fact that Speedball, I mean, that dude is has a motor in there, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, seriously, that guy. Again, another great signing by Tony Khan. I said it last week in the episode that Speedball, I think, and that's the company he should be in. So is Ricochet. I think Ricochet, that's the company that he should be in right now because he's doing his best work in there. And nonetheless, Kenny Omega, does retain the international championship. And who comes out after that? You hear the drop of the coin, Mr. Okada, who is the Continental Champion of AEW. And they go face to face. And I alluded to it last week, about the possibility of them, something I did read about the possibility of them unifying those two titles. And like I said, nothing wrong with calling it the Intercontinental Championship. Heck, New Japan had the IWGP Intercontinental Championship, which, by the way, the inaugural champion was MVP. Shout out to MVP. But I could totally see this happening, and they should milk it a little bit, I think. Let that happen at All In because they're really going out of their way to promote All In Texas. They want to fill that stadium, that baseball stadium. I mean, I'm hoping that they do. I seriously do. I would love to see them pack 55, 60,000 in that stadium and let the world know that AEW is definitely here to stay. But of course, the main event of this pay-per-view was the AEW World Championship with John Moxley defending against Swerve Strickland. Anything you would expect in a Moxley match: blood, 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 biting. I mean, ladders. Tell me everything, 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 and everybody thought. Granted, everyone really thought that Swerve was going to walk out of there with the championship. Everyone thought that Swerve was going to win, and for me too. I really thought that Swerve was going to win. As the match went on, I'm thinking, oh, I think Swerve's going to do it. And the spot was they got the ladder and they put it over by the one of the foreign language commentary tables. They put it over there on the far side, and they're going up the ladder, and I'm thinking, oh, no suplex, please, no, no suplex, don't die, don't die. But Swerve ends up, jumping on, I think driving Mox into the table and got the holy shit chant going on, which is great. And right when Swerve's getting ready to go for the kill and ready to end this match, lights go out. And of course, who do you see? Nick and Matt Jackson, the Young Bucks, and they do the knee thing, the double knee to his head. And of course, John Moxley does retain the AEW World Championship. A lot of fans were not happy about that finish. It was a bit puzzling. I wasn't sure why. But of course, when you watch AEW Dynamite this past week, you'll be able to understand why when the Young Bucks explain themselves and what this means going forward for their potential relationship with John Moxley on how they helped him, being that they are the EVPs. I'll be remiss not to talk about what happened after the cameras went off. Swerve got on the microphone and he was talking about, representation and all that other stuff. And he said, for shits and giggles, fuck Booker T. And for those that know or don't know, obviously Booker T, who is with WWE as a commentator on NXT, but of course he has his own wrestling promotion and wrestling school in Houston, Reality of Wrestling. And he also has his radio show with Mr. Gilmore, called the Hall of Fame. And there was I think said incident that happened at a signing in Virginia fairly recently where Booker T did approach Swerve Strickland. You know what I mean? And I think very little was said, at that time. But of course, Swerve goes on the microphone and says that Booker made a valid point, and I'm not taking sides because quite frankly, I hope that they can squash this beef. We don't need that type of stuff in the industry. But Booker said, after you wrestled an incredible match, 30-minute match, and you send the fans home and they're thinking about me. They're talking about Booker T. They're not talking about what just happened with the pay-per-view with AEW. They're talking about Booker T, a guy that does not work there. And I think that's where you have to realize what's important and what's not important. And I sincerely hope that going forward that they don't do that again because it's not worth it. Like so right now, I mean, love him or hate him, but Swerve is one of the most popular stars in AEW. And again, he is in the right company where he should be. I believe whatever happened to WWE was the past or whatever, why it didn't work out there, but it's clearly working out in AEW. He's a former AEW world champion. So I just think that, they should just, like I said, squash that beef and, you know, just kind of move forward and go your separate ways and just make money. That's pretty much what it's all about. But I did attend the media scrum and it was a lot of fun, getting a chance to ask questions. I did ask Tony Storm a question, Anthony Bowens, CEO of AEW, Tony Khan, and Renee Paquette. And I'm going to play that at the end of this episode. So I'm going to close out and, let you guys hear, the questions that I did ask those individuals. But, again, subscribe to the D-Lew podcast if you haven't done so already. You can go to all platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, including my YouTube channel. Make sure you do that when you hit the YouTube channel. Make sure you when you go to hit the bell, make sure you hit all so you get notifications every time there's new content, including bonus content as well. Okay. In addition, like I said, if you go to Apple Podcasts, make sure you just hit subscribe and leave a comment as well. Leave a 5-star review. I'll definitely appreciate it. Of course, there's my social media. You go to the D-Lew podcast on all platforms at the D-Lew podcast. My own social media is at the real DT Lew. Of course, there's my store. Okay, you can go to my pro wrestling tee store, PWT dot Derrick T. Lewis. PWT dot DerrickTLewis.com. And of course, the Derrick T. Lewis official merchandise store, which of course it has that Nike collection, ladies and gentlemen. You can go to shop.DerrickTLewis.com. But like I said, I'm going to end the show on this note. And here are my questions at the media scrum. And again, no matter what it is you do in life, always remember to make it count. This is Derrick T. Lewis from Believe Network and the D-Lew podcast. I've been wanting to know for a long time, how close are we to getting that one-on-one match between you and Wendy Richter?
I've been asking that question every fucking day.
Well, shit, I think it takes two to tango. So, I think at any point, if she would love to come in, we'd love to have her. But I do think, that being said, there's a lot of competition lined up, contemporary competition lined up for you, champ.
He's been ducking and dodging me for years, the old tart.
A lot of contenders closer to your own age out there.
Yes, as in very young, yes.
But you are timeless.
Hi, Derrick T. Lewis with Believe Network and the D-Lew podcast. I just got to ask you, talk about the ovation for when you came out and that crowd, really giving you that ovation. Talk about that and how that made you feel for the first time.
It's always scary when you go away for a little bit and then you come back. I mean, it's my first time doing it, but you always hear that you have this anxiety about will they care, will they remember you? I mean, of course, I believe they would remember you, but would they care enough to go that crazy? And I was a ball of nerves waiting for that music to hit, and the second it dropped and people reacted, it was incredible. We got pyro too, which is really cool. Those concussions are so loud that they usually scare me, but I didn't even feel them because I was so in the zone and I was so just excited to be out there. And I got to thank the city of Philadelphia for showing up for the 5-tool player and really giving me a moment that I'll never, ever forget.
All right. I have a question for the both of you again. Derrick Lewis with the D-Lew podcast on Believe Network. For Tony, I know the company has been around 6 years and leaps and bounds, and I'm so proud of what you guys are doing. Has there been any discussion about the possibility of a development for an AEW app? And for Renee, I just have one question. Are the Leafs going to do it this year? That's all I got.
No, man. Don't point that at me.
You take that.
We'll see what those guys bring to the table. I love me some Leafs, bleed blue, but sometimes they let you down. So I'm not really willing to put all my eggs in that basket. We'll see.
That's TNT Sports would love this great synergy. That's two of their main programs being covered in one.
Yes.
That's a great question. So as far as the design of an app, certainly that is a priority for us. It's a great question. It's definitely something we're now that, frankly, under our current, our media rights agreement has grown, evolved, and changed, and there are things we have the ability to do that contractually I didn't necessarily have the ability to do a couple months ago.
Gotcha.
So I'm very excited about that. It's been a really, really great year. I think that's a great question, and we're developing and adding a lot of things in AEW in 2025, a lot of firsts this year for us, starting with the first ever simulcast, and that's a great question about the app, and it's definitely something that we're working on thinking about, because it's now, frankly, there are things we could do with an app that we might not have been able to do a few months ago. Thank you.